Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we bring you insiders who dig up stories that enlighten and inspire. She's no stranger to war zones or the news anchor desk. She now tackles stories from behind the camera. Heidi Collins is CEO of Storybones Media, and just off the press tour for her first feature-length documentary. Heidi is here for the case file I call Tame the Kraken. First off, Heidi, congratulations. I mean, this is no small feat. Your documentary dives into a special story of mental health and the oceans.
It does. Thanks, Roshini. And it is a real pleasure to be talking about something that, quite frankly, is new territory for me. When we leave businesses or have a second chapter in our careers, you try to figure out what skill sets and what types of insights you can bring into a new field. And even though I've been a storyteller my entire life, a journalist, a practicing journalist, breaking news, all the crazy stuff, I'm not really sure you ever fully know what you're getting into with something like this, a project of a full feature documentary brand film. So what is that, by the way? Lots of check marks and lots of boxes on a piece like this. Tame the Kraken goes way, way back to my days at the network when I had been invited by the VCOS, or the Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army, to go in theater to both Afghanistan and Iraq during the war to cover a myriad of different stories. This particular four-star general actually had two sons. One was a commander in Iraq and one was a commander in Afghanistan. So the story was very unique and super exciting. But what the network always required, and any network would require, was war training. And so you would go and live for a week in the mountains and off the land and in a cabin and sort of simulate all kinds of different scenarios that you may encounter in theater, whether it was first aid or hostage takeover or, any kind of potential scenario. And the person who led the war training for all of the networks, whether it was print or television broadcast, is the main character of Tame the Kraken. So his name is Tim Crockett, and he was a UK Royal Marine, SBS, which is a special boat services, very similar to our United States Navy SEALs. And that was Tim's background. So he came and he created a company, and he came to the networks and said, hey, I'd like to train your journalists before they go in theater so we can give them a good idea of what they might encounter.
That's so smart. I mean, it's good for you individually. It's good for the network. It prevents a lot of liability, but it also makes you less of a danger when you are in theater or on the ground.
Yeah, and what I loved about Tim and how I kind of connected with him immediately was he's an absolute realist, which might not sound too surprising. But the very first day of war training, I remember him saying, listen, we're going to spend about this much time pretending that you were taken hostage. What will kill you in theater is a first aid event. So we're going to spend the majority of our time learning how to treat our own wounds and how to care for one another if something horrible were to happen, because that is where you get into trouble.
Not
is first
sexy,
aid.
but real.
Nope. Very real. And I was like, I like this guy. So we stayed friends for years and years, in contact here and there, whether it was texting or quick phone calls. And Tim's company sort of evolved into security forces and hostile territory reports. So, for example, as my career shifted and moved, and when I would go into international lands and not be very familiar with whatever the dynamic was that was going on there, I would quickly text Tim and say, hey, I'm going to this place. I think it sounds fine, but I don't really know. What should I know about what's going on in the government or any other industry that we should be aware of before going in? And so several times he provided me with hostile territories reports. So we kind of stayed in contact that way. Then the thing that really started the discussion, a serious discussion about Tame the Kraken, was when my husband was going to Dubai and Saudi Arabia. And I quickly texted Tim, of course. I was like, hey, I mean, this is something that is new to our family and for my husband's work. So what do you think? And where should he be careful? Where should he stay away from? And how do you feel about the threat? So we had this full, conversation about that. And when he does a hostile territories report, it is incredibly impressive. Pages and pages of all of these different dynamics. And then he mentioned to me, he said, well, I don't know if you saw, but back in 2018, I rode across the Atlantic. And I was like, yeah, that little thing that you did. I watched that from afar and cheered him on, but really, didn't get involved, was just amazed by him. Well, in this conversation, he said, well, I'm getting ready to do the Pacific now, but this time I'm going to do it with my son, Harrison. Well, the last time I had seen Harrison, he was about this big. And it was back when I was still in Atlanta. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Now's my chance. I would love to tell this story. I would love to document it. There are so many different storylines here, so many narratives that we could bring up. And he said, well, our main one is, of course, mental health and veteran mental health and prevention of veteran suicide. Because I remember that the impetus for the 2018 row across the Atlantic was because he had lost a very close warrior colleague to him to suicide. And he said to himself, I want to do something, but I don't want to do something and then just have it be like, oh, wow, that was cool. I want to offer something, a program, some sort of community around veterans and some of the things that we go through when coming back to civilian life, which is something that I'm very familiar with, being the wife of a former United States Air Force fighter pilot. So seeing, kind of that entire community and being around them and living that as the wife of was something that I'm very familiar with and had carried throughout my entire career as well.
So many layers. I mean,
toward that.
It's not always that when you're the storyteller, you are actually having some insight into the subject of your stories. So not only that history with Tim, how he had educated you and your colleagues in the past, but your own husband having that military connection. So there's another layer, an extra layer of empathy that you bring to the story. The thing that's so unique here is not only, there are many things, but the relationship you have with Tim, but his using the row across the Atlantic, and then as you covered him in your documentary, rowing with his son, the Pacific row, and really connecting that mental health piece to the ocean. You can't control the ocean, just like we can't always control our minds and the different things that are happening with our mental health.
Right. And so Tame the Kraken, I did have to learn what a kraken was, to be honest. And I don't think that everyone knows. So I'll just take a quick moment to say, the kraken comes from sort of this mythical idea, a mythical creature that years and years ago was seen as something that comes up from the ocean like a big octopus with tentacles that tries to bring seamen down underneath the water. And so we related that to mental health, because mental health does have so many tentacles and it does try to bring you down, and it is as relentless as the sea. So we thought that was a very good parallel to equate to the challenges of mental health.
And titles really matter, right? To sell movies, to sell books. That really is the essence of this documentary. That's such a great title. Tell us about. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And the name of the boat that they used, the 24-foot ocean rowing boat that they used, both for the Atlantic and for the Pacific that we covered in the documentary, is called the Kraken.
Perfect all around. Tell us about wow. I mean, they went 2,400 nautical miles from Sausalito, California to Hilo, Hawaii. They accomplished it in 48 days. They broke 2 Guinness World Records, which we'll get into shortly. But here's what's really amazing, and a shout out to you, Heidi, and your crew, this 58-minute documentary. So think about how every second, every minute counts. 48 days worth of raw footage. 40
I'm getting hives as you bring it up.
I know, 40 hours of produced footage. So you got to take the 48 days of raw footage down to 40 hours of produced footage. And then no wonder it takes 6 months to edit, because you can only land at 58 minutes. How did you even go about deciding how to cover it and then what to cut after you rolled on all that footage?
Well, to be honest, 6 months is lightning speed
Yes.
to create a full feature documentary. And the reason why, so a couple quick things, the reason why we were under what I felt to be significant pressure was not only the produced end to end, like the bookends, meaning the launch that we covered professionally produced in Sausalito, and then the landing that we covered professionally produced in Hilo, Hawaii, as you mentioned. But those 48 days out in the ocean, 4 GoPros and 2, some were underwater, and then 2 were mounted on the boat, and then the 2 great cameras. Our iPhones do amazing, amazing things. And then we had the Meta sunglasses that also shot footage so that they didn't have to use their hands. So my great idea was, let's get them these sunglasses that will shoot footage and they can continue to roll, because I was very worried about, stopping and being like, we're going to shoot this, and now we're going to shoot this, and we're going to do an interview here, because they needed to get across an ocean.
Right.
So
they didn't need the crew slowing them down any.
Right. So unfortunately, the glasses were not as utilitarian as we had hoped. They needed to be connected to Bluetooth, which in the middle of an ocean, you don't really have. So that was kind of a fail and a learning moment. But given that, what you were saying about this completely unpredictable and uncontrollable variable within your producing footage that comes in to review and then to figure out what's going to make it and what isn't, it was a huge challenge. But what we had looming was this incredible opportunity. I'd been invited to speak at Cannes MIPCOM, which is a huge global event in France that is industry specific, meaning distributors are there, creators are there, media partners are there, and you talk about all these different things that go into this type of work. And I had been asked to come and speak about the journalism in brand film and journal marketing, which is a trademark term that we have at Storybones Media. And so I thought, well, we got to bring the partner, we got to bring my brand along, and we're going to talk about how we made this film, and we'll debut the trailer there. So we had to have the trailer finished by the early part of October, which sounds like, it's just the trailer. That's like 4 or 5 minutes long. Well, you still have to evaluate all of the footage.
Yeah, because you also want to give a sense of beginning to end without giving too much away. But you still need to have the drama, even in a shorter trailer. Often the shorter, the less is more, can be the more difficult thing even to edit.
It's always harder in television news. We'd say it's hardest to write the teases in order to keep the audience around during the commercial break to come back for the next thing. So the shorter stuff is definitely much harder. But that's what the big deadline was to watch all of that footage and come up with a really compelling trailer in order to have it for the speaking engagement at Cannes.
And we will make that trailer available to the Crisis Files audience. And the film, however, you're literally editing, like you're just about to finish it as we are in the middle of the summer 2026. So when can we get our eyes on this? I know you're putting it in for film festivals for 2027, but when is the earliest that regular people could watch this one day?
Well, I love that question because it is such a process, and it really is a huge learning experience for all of us involved in this first-time venture. Certainly for me as a first-time director, producer for a full feature length. So the film is finished. We did have a screening event, which was very exciting, in May in New York City during Mental Health Awareness Month.
May 2026.
And yes. And so now that we have had a screening, which can be kind of seen as a focus group. You want to hear from people. You want friends, family, industry professionals to watch it and give you their thoughts. Now that we've done that, we will be looking to premiere. And so a premiere will be planned depending on which film festivals we want to submit to. So we're in the process of doing that right now. Of course, there will likely be um, some editing that will happen, depending on who wants to A, premiere with us, and B, distribute us. So typically what happens is when you get a distribution partner, I should say if, because there are no guarantees, there are no promises
we're going to
at
say
all.
when, just like we say,
Okay.
not a matter of if, but when crisis will happen. We're going to say not a matter of if, but when Tame the Kraken gets a distributor.
Yes. So, they are well within their right when they buy the film. So I own the film as the creator right now. And when a distributor buys the film, they may say, hey, are you up for, changing this little piece or softening this little piece? It won't be a major thing.
Adding a love
scene?
Important. Probably not.
No. They were very alone out there, by the way. But so there might be just a little bit of editing that has to take place, and then it will go into premiere and into distribution, whether it's VOD, an Amazon Prime or a Hulu or a Netflix or broadcast, even a PBS or BBC. There are, in this business now, there are just so many different outlets, which is very exciting.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's a difficult, long, arduous process, and we applaud you for just living it right now. But the landscape is so different from when you and I were in TV news. And there are options. So what you might have thought when you first started shooting, there are platforms that didn't even exist a couple years ago, Heidi, that could be airing this one day in 27 and 2028. So we are excited on the Crisis Files to be here, not quite the ground level or sea level with you, but we are so in the beginning stages, and we will continue to be your fans. Maybe we should take the Crisis Files on the road to be at your premiere in 2027. Oh. That would be fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
We love it.
You're invited.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The other thing I want to ask you about is, because Tim has been such a pivotal person in your backstory, but now as you're part of his life story chronicling this very amazing father-son experience, what was it like for you on the human level to cover this?
Well, it's such a great question because, I haven't seen Tim this way. I mean, I've seen him in action. I've seen him, he came on my show a number of times when we were talking about different threat assessments and so forth in the news business. I've seen him with his family, but I haven't really seen him, hone in like he does, and like a special forces person, of course, does. And really put his mind to something and then go and get it done. Quite frankly, I knew for a fact that this mission would be complete. They would finish the expedition. They would get across the ocean. But think about that. That is no small thing to say. But I do know him well enough, and I do know his DNA, I think, well enough to know that at least I don't have to worry about the idea of doing a film and then maybe having the mission not complete. I just was so certain that that would be the case. But what I hadn't seen was this correlation, more of the human side. I'd seen the father side, but I hadn't seen more of the human side, i.e., his feelings and his relationship to mental health and veteran mental health and prevention of suicide. And in those, interviews that we did in Hawaii when the expedition was over, when he'd had just a little bit of sleep, for him to be able to come full circle and look back at what he had done with his son and equate it all to mental health and how difficult the challenges must be. And he says it in the film in a very, very emotional moment. He just felt like this was his little way of trying to help men and women who are struggling. And so moving forward, it's not just a film. You go and you watch it and you say, wow, it's really awful how some people have to go through that. There is a movement And Tim and his family have been working for a little while and are now making it sort of a priority in their lives to start their own franchise of a larger organization, but their own franchise that's called Road to Recovery. And what this is veterans who come together, they go out on the water and they learn how to row. And what it gives them is solace. It gives them time to talk. It gives them a bit of community and shared experiences and a safe environment where they can feel like, well, it's okay to talk about these kind of ugly things that I still have with me after my service because I'm sharing it with someone I trust and someone who kind of knows what I'm going through.
Yeah,
And that
it's just
is
amazing.
Invaluable.
Yeah, that is just amazing. And I cannot wait to see. I have watched the trailer. It's amazing. What's really fun for the Crisis Files, for our family of people engaged with us across our platforms, is we do have some of that. We have that trailer, so we will be able to share at least clips from that so you can get such a flavor while we wait for that feature length to be out and more widely distributed when you get that distributor. So
right. And I'll just say one last thing, Roshini, is, not to be hawking for money, but, this is a purpose-driven film. And it's a documentary. This is not a moneymaker. This isn't a Hollywood film with actors and actresses. This is all real stuff.
Tom Cruise is not part of this.
He is not part of it. And I think Tim is more of a badass. I'll just say it.
He's a real badass.
Yeah, he's real. And so is his son, who learned so much about himself in this journey. Moving forward to get distribution and to go to these film festivals and to carry on the idea of mental health awareness, it takes money. And so we are happy for donations in order to be able to move forward in this process and get the distribution so that the right people have eyes on this film and that we can offer a little bit of hope.
For sure. We definitely want that. You can connect directly with Heidi on storybonesmedia.com, as well as Heidi Collins on LinkedIn. But that storybonesmedia.com will have more information about the film if you want to support it, as Heidi has mentioned. Today's case file is powered by Mall of America. Mall of America. Great shopping. A dazzling and dizzying variety of attractions and restaurants. Did you realize Mall of America also hosts hundreds of events each year? Everything from high-fashion runway shows to visits from the hottest musicians. Pop-up celebrations ahead of movie premieres. Charity-related walks and holiday-themed experiences. You never know what you will find at our mall. For upcoming events and happenings, check out mallofamerica.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Visit thecrisisfiles.com for all 4 seasons of the show. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.